Hello, everyone. We are live. It's Friday. I have to admit, I am very ready for the weekend. It's been a good, productive week, but quite a tiring week. I'm very excited to have my good friend Ross Hovey, who lives barely 15 miles away from me, roughly.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
So we'll have to do one of these in person when we're all allowed to get together again, and even just we're streaming on Twitch as well as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And have you come across Twitch before us?
I haven't, no.
So it's a gaming social media platform. So we could either have one of our FIFA marathons and just put it on Twitch and get abused by teenage children in Spain or whatever else goes on.
I haven't even turned my PlayStation on in lockdown. It's been that busy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get onto work in a minute, but you've been, as a few people have said, you've been busier than ever despite the lockdown, right?
Yeah. Very busy. Yeah, work is relentless, I would say, at the moment.
Well, give us a kick-off intro, a bit of, about your disability, bit of background, but also what job you're doing as well.
Okay, so obviously I'm Ross Hovey. So so I've got SMA like yourself, type 2.
Yeah.
Was diagnosed at 2. Just over 40. So been living with it all my life.
Yeah, like
I think
Richard said, Ross,
yeah,
the
a little
man,
bit
the
different.
legend, the myth, Ross
Yeah,
Hovey.
yeah, a little bit different maybe from some other people with SMA too. So up until the age of 17, I walked and was pretty
Yeah,
independent in doing a lot of my own, personal care and things like that. Had part-time jobs at a supermarket and things like that. So then I obviously had a spinal fusion when I was 16, 17. It
yeah.
didn't go too well,
Mm,
which basically resulted in me going from being able to stand and do a lot for myself to into the wheelchair
yeah,
full time and not able to do stuff.
sure.
Um, but kind of didn't really let it impact me too much. Kind of went to uni locally, didn't do the whole moving away thing,
Yeah,
which is probably one of my biggest regrets in life. I would have loved to
yeah.
have done what you did and gone and lived in the halls of residence or a house somewhere away from my local community.
Yeah,
But
like
you
I
know,
had Love Island in Coventry when I was there.
yeah, for every negative, there's a positive. So I've kept
Yeah,
a
of
good
course.
network of friends around where I live, but it would have been nice to go and experience a different life. And then I
Absolutely.
applied for a job for one of the biggest banks, and I'm not going to say their name, but if you look
Hmm.
me up on LinkedIn and anywhere else, you'll be able to work it out.
Yeah,
Applied for a job on their grad scheme to be a bank manager, and within 18 months of working in a bank, I realised I liked the company, but being a bank manager wasn't necessarily
wasn't
my
your career.
career. No, it wasn't what I wanted to do longer term.
Yeah,
And through the help of a really good mentor, I managed to get a move into a secondment into a head office role,
yeah.
and then kind of did some really mainstream banking type roles, so a project management role in operations.
Hmm.
Then went into HR, looked after our graduate recruitment function,
Yeah,
and then went and did a bit of e-learning. And then about 5 years ago, I really wanted to bring my lived disability experience um, and my experience of working for that company into one. And at the same time, a disability team was being formed, and I
mm,
was lucky enough to apply for a job in that team and started as a assistant manager to the senior manager of that team, but I've kind of worked my way up within that team. So I'm now accessibility manager for the bank that I work for, and predominantly the biggest part of my job is supporting 4,500 of our disabled colleagues with their workplace adjustments.
yeah. Amazing. Really, really good work you're doing there. And I, as you say, not to mention the name, and there's obviously certain things in general, specific details with the role that you can't go into. But I think the general workplace adjustment is a really important thing around disabled people being in employment. And so, yeah, for you to be in a role that you're able to tap into lived experience, but also all of that career experience and all the professional skills you picked up, it's a great role to be in at the moment for you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting job. It can be quite challenging. Some
Yeah,
days, I think the biggest thing for me, and I think you'll know this from our friendship. 10 years ago, the idea of being in a room with a lot of other people of any disability was not for me because I grew up in a very non-disabled community. My
yeah,
majority of my friends are non-disabled, I never really, and I used to get really uncomfortable. So one of the reasons I kind of wanted to get into this kind of work was to actually help me understand people more and to kind of like broaden my horizons. Because if you don't understand people, you can't help them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, just sort of going back a couple of points you made earlier, I was thinking like there's the fact we've got SMA. You're right, like a lot of type 2s, and for anyone that doesn't know, there's SMA type 1 is more severe, type 2 is broadly kind of a wheelchair user a lot of the time, and then type 3 is a bit more walking in childhood, but then probably using a wheelchair in adulthood. So, I mean, do you think you were borderline with type 3, that the reason you could walk so long?
I don't know. I mean, 40 years ago is a long time when, in medicine, and maybe the different strands of the diagnosis were different.
Well,
Probably.
the are just about really it's more about your strength and ability rather than DNA sort of point. So it's a scale, isn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe borderline. I think maybe partly also my parents and my mum specifically was determined that she wasn't gonna let me be disabled, so she drove me to kind of keep walking. I remember when my hip dislocated when I was 15, and she kept saying to me, don't get on the stair lift, climb up the stairs, walk from the car to the front door. Cruel to be kind has always been her motto.
No, I mean, that's an interesting dynamic, because you get a lot of parents that probably go the other way, and there's a lot of mollycoddling and wrapping the kids in cotton wool because they're disabled, and then that child can be, not getting social skills, not as included in different parts of society, because there's so much fear about what if things go wrong, and just that general, and it's natural, right? Like if you're a parent, you want to protect your children, disabled or not. But I have seen that quite a lot, that there are disabled kids that are too wrapped in cotton wool, and then when they're adults, it's a bit of a shock, because whether you're disabled or not, you have to fight for work, and you have to generally just fight for whatever it is you want out of life. So I think that there is an importance of having that sort of, not only being identified as disabled in the label sense, but I think what also you and I went through at different stages was that we do have SMA, and it does impact our life compared to someone that doesn't have it. And it's important to also accept that the absolute limitations that provides, so we're not upset or bitter about it at the same time. It's a hard balance, right?
Yeah. I think also maturity makes you realize what, kind of decisions are smart and what decisions are not so smart. So I remember like one of my baddest decisions, which was great fun at the time, but now being 40, I definitely wouldn't redo it, was when I went to Dubai probably about 10 years ago with two friends, and we went to Atlantis for the day, and they took me on the rapids in a dinghy, and how I didn't break my leg or like drown, I do not know. It was a great experience, but now at 40, I would be like, no way. I've got a really important career. I've got loads of things to depend on. I'm not going to do that. So
that's the zest of life. Well, not zest of life, but the risk taking changes again, disabled or not, doesn't it? I think as people get a bit older, you're more wary of driving a car as fast. I remember going to Coventry, and I used to get my adaptive vehicle up to some pretty serious speeds, and now I get near sort of 70, or I haven't driven for a while now, but more recently I get up near 70 and I'd be really freaking out about it. So I think the risk tolerance changes a bit over time as well.
Yeah, I think that, and probably I look at the miles per gallon and the cost of diesel and think, I don't want to spend it on that. So
exactly, counting the pennies a bit more as well. Yeah, so I mean, I think obviously in terms of that side, we touched around SMA, and I think that the bits that brought you up to the job that you now do sort of made a lot of sense. Probably not a lot more to chat around in the bank past tense, but obviously the big thing we're going to talk about today is around the sort of independent living, and specifically around technology. So I mean, if you just start a couple of things that you're not able to do because of SMA, obviously for anyone watching that doesn't know, it's more just to then frame how the tech provides you with solutions.
Yeah. Okay. So Well, as I say, I can't really do anything anymore apart from type and hold my phone. So
Yeah,
about that, and drive my car with the adaptation.
that
So
fits the scene perfectly.
yeah, so I need help for everything.
Yeah.
And technology obviously enables me to keep some form of independence within that. So, obviously I can write my own messages, I can communicate independently with my friends without having to ask someone to type messages and things like that. So that's obviously fantastic. But I've always been a bit of a tech geek. And kind of followed the iPhone from before it became an iPhone, before it was out there, and was an early adopter of getting one. And then I've kind of followed the smart home technology. So I can't say her name because she'll talk as soon as I say her name because the room I'm in's got one in. But I've got one of those devices that Amazon
Begins with A.
Yeah, I've got one in every room. So, for example, at night, if I need a drink, if I need to be turned, I've got one in my room and one in the carer's room, and you can use it as an intercom. So you can say basically drop in on that room, and it allows that has basically changed me having to hold my phone in my hand all night. Because I used to have to do that. I mean, it's still close by to me, but I don't fear so much now if I drop it or it's not in and I've also got the a connection to my phone line. So actually, if something happened to one of the carers and I needed to raise a phone call, I can actually say dial this number. So I've got some numbers that I know off the top of my head, emergency numbers. So that kind of stuff kind of helps you protect. I've recently
mental health, isn't it? Because you're not as worried and stressed about what, because there was always that underlying fear of what if the carer, just went off or left or collapsed or ill, what we would be very stuck. Like, that'd be an understatement. And prior phones, there was no way of having contact with the outside world. But even with a phone, you don't want it in your hand all the time, particularly at night. So I mean, I have adopted those same things you mentioned, and you just feel a bit less vulnerable, really.
And I think also, like in this COVID scenario where you're less, because you're isolated more. Obviously, there's less come-ins and go-ins to the house. So actually, if something did happen, it could be 9-8 hours before somebody thinks, hang on a minute, not seen Ross online, not heard from him, hasn't had a message. Is he okay? So having that ability, that thing. And recently, kind of with a bit of smart tech, I managed to install one in my wet room, like in the ceiling. So again, one of the high risk areas for me is in a shower. There's water. There's people could fall over. What would happen if you were left under a burning hot shower all day or something like that? So again, I can communicate with the outside world. I can answer the front door from there as well. So again, if there's a package. So I think
Sorry, that's all from ALEXA, right?
Yeah, all from that. Yeah.
And can you describe the door thing a little bit more?
So I've got a ring front door, and when it works, it's a little bit unreliable sometimes because the Wi-Fi in the home. But that basically says to you, when someone pushes your doorbell, it basically says to you around all those A devices in the house, there is somebody at your front door, and then you can basically communicate and say, ALEXA, answer the front door. And then you can communicate. So if, for example, it's the postman, he says, I've got a package, rather than my carer thinking, I've got to run down there and then run back down. If I get to him, I can say, that's fine, I'll only be 5 minutes, leave it at the front door. If I really wanted to, I've enabled it. I can open my garage door. So I can say, open the garage door, and he could put the package in the garage door. I could close the garage door. I've got a camera as well, so you could make sure that it actually does happen. So
how, I mean, I get that sort of the software wise you're connecting all these things to ALEXA, but how did you get like the motors on the door and that kind of stuff?
So I had an electric garage door already. So the house that I live in was originally my parents' home. We bought it together in 2005, and then around 2013 I basically bought the other 50% off of them, and they kind of moved out. So I kicked them out. But they had an electric garage door from when they lived here. And then I another piece of technology. So one of my friends who's an electrician and engineer, they build big factories for like all the big sort of beer and crisp manufacturers. They're very technical. They found this stuff called lightwave RF, which is basically like smart sockets and smart lights and smart relays. And initially they said, well, we can make your bedroom smart for you. And then I realized how good that was. And then I decided to make the whole house smart. And then I started looking at the relays and thought, oh, I could probably make my garage door work off that. Bit of research on YouTube. And then obviously initially it was IFTT before. So that's kind of where you can connect you can write basically a macro that connects different smart home technologies to each other. So for example, you can say every time I take a photo put it on Instagram, create a spreadsheet of that photo and where it was taken if you really wanted to. I don't do things like that, but you can say if, for example, the front door rings, flash the lights in my lounge twice. So if, for example, you're hard of hearing, you could make that happen. So, but now you don't really need to do a lot of IFTT because a lot of devices actually have connections to each other. So they're all building like, HomeKit or Google or Echo, Alexa compatible. So yeah.
Cool. I mean, you're obviously very technically capable. I mean, for others that, and it's about inclination, like anyone can learn it, but some people just don't feel compelled to understand the minor details. So presumably there's companies out there that will sort of come and do an assessment and help do installations and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the trouble was, so when we bought the house that I live in, we had support from social services who came and put in some environmental controls.
The OT could help in theory.
Yeah, but they will always push you down the preferred supplier route of what they've got, and it's usually stuff called, I think it's called Giwa is the brand that they use, and it's, in my view, it's very disabled. It looks disabled. It doesn't blend nicely with your home.
Well, we spoke. Did you see the one with Ed Warner from Motions? But it's all about how design doesn't have to just be functional for disability, but it should look nice in your house as well, which is what you were saying, right?
So that's why I kind of started developing myself. But you could, Lightwave RF, for example, the company that I use, John Shermer, who's the CEO, his actual roots are in assistive technology. So 20 years ago, before the world of smart homes existed, he used to build environmental control. So actually, his company have been very helpful in advising me what to do. They've come out over the phone. They provide remote assistance as well, and they'll help you write macros to do certain things as well. And there's lots of videos out there as well. So yeah.
Cool. We'll go to a couple of community questions for now. Your mate Jeremy has private messaged me. I'm not going to read it out, but you can imagine, right, Ross?
Yeah, I can imagine, Jez. Yeah.
Anyone watching, Ross's mate Jeremy's got a wicked sense of humour, a very good way, but a very naughty way. So we won't do it on lunchtime on a Friday, but I'll ask you the question if we do daily sib after hours.
Cool.
So Paul is saying driving Miss Sibley like driving Miss Daisy when we were talking about driving. Good to see you, Paul. Paul, another SMAer. Richard, was accepting so much help a tough thing to get your head around? Yeah, I guess it's that sort of...
I lost you for a second then.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is it back? Always the joys of tech when the Wi-Fi goes down. Can you not hear me, Ross? We'll try removing and adding him again.
I've lost you.
Okay, well, while Ross tries to find us again, I'll come to your question, Rich, around whether accepting was tough and to get your head around it. I think there are moments that it's quite tough, but at the same time, it's a bit of a organic evolution as well. So that there was one or two chats I remember having with people at uni that led to it, but it was generally over longer time, and parts of it were tough. But I think it's just part of growth and necessary.
My headset's gone.
Can you hear now?
You just take my headset out.
Okay, I'll remove Ross while he gets his headset changed. Yeah, so that was my thoughts for you there, Rich. We'll get Ross to share some thoughts in a moment. Gavin saying, I only just worked out that you were talking about Amazon Alexa and not a service hound, how times have changed. Love it. Yeah, totally true. The way the world has developed and all the meanings of things as well. Can you hear me now, Ross? No, it's still quite stuttery. Remove that for a couple more seconds. So Mark saying FYI, IFTTT, that's a lot of acronyms, derives its name from programming conditional statement, if this, then that. What the company provides is a software platform that connects apps, devices, and services from different developers in order to trigger one or more automations involving those apps, devices, and services. So thank you, Mark, for clarifying that. How are you getting on, Ross?
Hold together the top two buttons.
Oh, these two.
Yeah. Power off.
No, still having trouble. So yeah, obviously we're talking about Ross's use of technology and how it enables him to live independently. There was a funny story I was going to share while Ross was chatting, that when I was at uni, I did have a mobile phone, but it was sort of 2002, so it was not. I think most people probably had a mobile at that point, but equally prior to that, many students with a disability at the Coventry University had these special alarms, so you could wave your hand in front of a sensor, and then upstairs where all of my care team were living, they did 1 day off, 3 days, 1 day on, 3 days off, and it was a kind of voluntary project that they were involved in as doing the care team. It wasn't pure. Oh, Paul is saying we can hear Ross. Can you hear me now, Ross? I don't think he can hear me, Paul. That's the problem. I think his AirPod earphones had run out or something, so he's not able to actually hear what I'm saying, even though we can hear him. Yeah. So anyway, basically, it's a bit of a naughty story as well, but basically that this gadget, you waved your hand in front of, and it set an alarm off, and you flicked which room it was meant to go off to, which carer or PA was working. And so yeah, I was having a rendezvous with another young lady at the university, and we didn't want anyone to know about it, and she snuck in my room and accidentally set the sensor off before she could turn it off at the wall. So it meant that it sent the alarm upstairs to the person who then came down to try and turn me over, because that's normally why I would call out, because I need help turning. And she had to hide under the bed or behind the door in the kitchen or something crazy, so that our little romance wasn't found out at that point. So anyway, a little bit of when tech goes wrong before all of the smart tech got better. Can you hear me, Ross?
I can now. Sorry, that was a classic case of my phone is somehow connected to all of this as well, and the phone coming in knocked off the technology. So sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. I don't know if you got the gist of my little filler story, but it was just about when I was at uni and the alarm, when I accidentally set the sensor alarm off when a young lady came to visit me, and it was just talking about how it's, was better having a mobile phone, not these alarm systems. And then obviously with the ALEXA, it's even better than phones. So that was my little filler story while you were getting your tech back up and running.
I'm going to go to Rich's question then.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, about acceptance. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think maybe I think obviously I was thrown into a situation at 17 where I didn't have a choice, because I had an operation and so it went wrong. So I woke up literally and I had to start accepting that help.
Yeah.
I think I tried to get back some form of independence, but never really the same. And again, really personally, it took me until my early 30s to actually go into like having a full-time care. I used to rely on my parents quite a lot, but you're never going to move forward in life if you rely on your parents. So it took me a long time to make that step, but kind of it was a bit like the same with a support worker at work. I used to go into London on my own, not wear a jacket, like nearly get run over by people on bikes, and lots of near misses. Only be able to go to the toilet once a day. And it wasn't that my employers were not helping me. It was the fact that I hadn't told them what help I needed, so I'd put up with things. And actually, once I realised, so going back to kind of Rich's help, kind of for anyone who's fearing that step, I'd say if you're recognising you can't do something and you need the help, you really need to make that step, because it made an overnight difference for me, like massively. So
and there's an intricate intersection, because it's like you don't want to only have thought processes that for whatever you can't do, for whatever health condition, that like everything's crap and everything's impossible. Because as you and I know, and lots of others, with a positive mindset, you can still do a lot. With like us having a relatively severe physical disability, but you also, as I sort of touched upon earlier, have to know, like, you need to wear a coat in the cold, and you don't want to catch colds and flus in the winter. And so it's like you have to accept the physical support from a care team, and that's a mental adjustment, but not to fall into just like a victim or a negativity mentality. It's quite a balance to strike, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much so.
Yeah. No, thanks for reminding me to touch back on Rich's question. Gavin has got a question here. I'll bring it up. What piece of tech excites you about what might be possible in the future? That was going to be the sort of look to the future, but let's go for it now.
Okay, so I think for me is a driverless car. So the self-driverless car. So at the moment, I still drive with some hand controls, and my car, with the technology that is the standard, like manufacturing, not dropping the Mercedes plug, but it's the only way to explain it. It actually got a lot of features that work with my hand controls. So I drive with Space Drive. Who are familiar with hand controls, but Space Drive plugs in, I think, to what's called the operating system of the Mercedes, and the car already has got the ability to follow the car in front. So, for example, on the motorway, you set whatever speed you want to set.
And that's now, right?
That's now, and if the car brakes, it automatically brakes. I don't need to brake. Obviously, you have to be alert. There's always that bit that it brakes a bit later than you might want to. But likewise, if you go to indicate into another lane, it vibrates at you. So for me, that my car is already halfway there. What people don't realize is the technology Space Drive that's used to help disabled people drive is actually one of the major technologies behind autonomous cars. For me, I know that I'm getting weaker. I know that driving not only like physically is harder, mentally as you get older, it's tiring. The roads are busier, obviously after not maybe so much at the moment, but after COVID, busy. So for me, the ability to have a car that drives itself, I think that's something that will make disabled people's life. I guess the bit that's going to be interesting is, in an autonomous car, will there need to still be, in an emergency, you need to take over the wheel? I mean, for disabled people, do you need a license still? What are the implications of all of that? So
it's obviously details to be worked out, but the general idea of driverless cars is quite exciting for you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, agreed. I mean, for me, I think it's a lot of transportation stuff. So it would be great if there was a tech / change of policy around flying, where we don't have to get lifted and sit out of our wheelchair. So that it's not smart home tech, but it's certainly tech that could maybe enable that one day. Would excite me if it's possible. And then like in the home, I mean, a lot of it is getting there, isn't it? Like, I think for me, the voice bit is a bit frustrating at times, where she doesn't understand you, exactly what you've said, what command you've given it. It just has it's a bit glitchy for me at times. So I guess just every year it will get better. And I think another year or two, it will be a lot more of a smoother user process.
I think if anyone's watching this that has links with Sky, if they were able to enable that to work with those smart home devices, that would be great. They've got a great feature on the remote that if you push the button, you can say the name of the channel, but that requires having the remote in your hand. and holding the remote. And if you've got the phone in your hand already,
Yeah.
another spare hand when you're driving your wheelchair. So for me, somewhere around a bit more of the integration, and also I've got the lady's name with beginning with A.
Yeah.
I've got the man beginning with S on my phone.
Yeah.
And kind of, it would be great if all the devices you could choose which voice service you want to use for
for everything. Yeah. So basically more integration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about remote controls, because I did a year ago that's helped me with all that a bit more. Like, have you got any app phone set up for your TV and for other things?
Yeah, so my TV in my bedroom is a latest one, and that connects into one of the home devices, so I can turn it on and off, and I can turn up the volume and things. But I found an app that does control Sky remote through your phone. So again, I can change the channel. It's a bit glitchy though. It doesn't always connect, and I've got 3 different boxes in the house, so you have to constantly come out and tell it which room you're in. So that, again, like, it works, it's just not perfect.
Yeah,
so I think another really good app that I've kind of used recently and kind of helping me with my sort of technology life is AnyList. So AnyList allows you to create lists for people. So for example, I can create a list for the care team of things I need doing, and I can assign those lists to different people, and then when they've done something, they can mark it off, which helps me understand where we're at. So in terms of like the house stuff, like, you know, general stuff around the house, I can also plug meal plans into it, and then from the meal plan I can select a shopping list, and then that means I've got the shopping list in front of me when I'm on my online shopping. So again, I can cross it off, or if they're doing something for me and they go, oh, you've run out of something, they can just add it to the list. So when I next do my shopping, that I need it. So that's a really good list. And again, you can use the voice commands in your home to say, add that to my list.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I'll be downloading that afterwards, I think. Cool. So I mean, in the house, is there any, I mean, you sort of touched upon smart sockets and stuff. I mean, like for me, I've got Hive heating, and I've got one Hive plug that does a lamp. So that means that with ALEXA, I can do the boost the heating or change the heat, and I can do that one plug. You sort of mentioned you've done a bit more. So can you just explain a bit some of the other things in the house that are connected to smart tech?
So every light in the house is connected to smart tech. So either via voice or via my phone, I can, or even via my Apple TV, I can control all the lights in the house. The same system controls my heating. I did have every single socket in the house made that you could do it via the system, but I realized that actually there are certain things that you don't really want to turn on or off. You just leave them on. So like your router, you need your router on the whole time. So when I upgraded from their Series 1 to Series 2 product, I didn't upgrade every socket. I reverted back to some original sockets. I did have a combination of Nest stuff, so the Nest cams, but again, they're lagging behind in the UK, so I've gone down the Ring route. So I've got a Ring burglar alarm. So again, I can set the burglar alarm from my phone. If my burglar alarm goes off when I'm not at home, it buzzes my phone to say you've got a burglar alarm. It turns on all the cameras when that happens as well, again through technology. I've got a camera in my hallway, so if I'm down the other end of my house and someone comes to the door, I can see who it is as well as outside who it is. So kind of that's the main stuff that I use. So I've got things like lights come on automatically at dusk. I've got the ability to some are on a PIR, so they turn on automatically and then go off automatically. So for example, if you go into the toilet, because people, I might shout that I need some help and someone forgets to turn a light off, and the last thing you want to do is leave a light on all day. So if you go into the toilet and after 15 minutes you haven't turned the light, it automatically turns it off. So
that's cool. So I mean, obviously there are people that have got similar disability to me, and you don't need to hear my summary, but there are people that watch this that are from, like, particularly on LinkedIn, there are people watching that are not so much from a disability background. So the overall point is that physically there's a lot you can't do sort of yourself, and you've got the care team, but that's great, like to do various things that tech obviously can't do. But the more that we can do independently, having that choice and control is just easier. But it's sort of that mental health positivity as well, isn't it? Sort of feeling more able and more in control of your life. Like, before I got the app on my phone for the TV remote, I had to always ask someone to get the remote for me because I can't reach it. So all the stuff we're talking about is basically to solve that from your phone or from your voice. You can do all those sorts of functions, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people that are developing smart tech probably don't develop it with the disabled community in mind, but it's a byproduct that they don't realize they can tap into. Actually, is a really bigger market there that's not, as you spoke about in previous weeks about the purple pound. There's a consumer market there to purchase those things. So most I'm just trying to think of stuff that don't realize the benefit for disabled, but I guess the smart home devices allowing you to change the channel, allowing you to choose what radio station, allowing you to set an alarm in the morning without somebody set the alarm clock. Those are all things that other people take for granted.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it sounds like the challenge to still be, or the problem to still be solved, is that integration, because you've mentioned a lot, and I've got similar things, like a lot of different products and hardware and software, and then they don't all talk to each other and they don't all engage with each other. So there is definitely a clunkiness to you just want your home to be as simple to use as possible, but it's a bit of a bolt on, and then it gets a bit more confusing at times.
Yeah, I think also the other frustrating thing is companies that sit in the medical space are a bit behind this. So I don't know, people have got, some people have, orthopedic beds. So I've got a bay care bed, which is a really good bed, but as I've got older and weaker, I can't use the remote on it as much. Right. So now to me, if I could control that off an app on my phone, that would be awesome. And when you ring them up and suggest it, it's like, oh, well, we're not really going to go down that route. And you're like, well, there's a demand, and I've seen other people asking for it. So, and what will happen is someone will go and do it themselves, and they'll create the product, and they've lost out on why you want to go back to them, because you'll keep the bed forever if you can just upgrade the chip on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, is there anything else, sort of last chance, to any other apps or hardware or thoughts about tech? And if not, we'll move on to workplace.
No, you could talk about tech forever, but some people really.
I think that was good. We covered a lot. It's the kind of thing, if people have got other thoughts and questions, they can, get in touch with us afterwards as well. We've got various Facebook groups where this sort of stuff is going on. So, that's really great. Thank you for that, Ross. So I mean, just a bit more about workplace adjustments as a general point. And I think also around COVID-19, like how's that affected you personally and professionally as well?
So personally, COVID-19. So weirdly, I was on holiday when this all started outbreaking, and I got a really bad cough, and I'm still unsure of whether I've had it or not. Because I've never been so ill for 3 days in a very, very long time. And we came home and went pretty much into immediate lockdown. I don't know whether it's the volume of work or the stress of the situation, but I definitely, because I usually swim 3 times a week if I can. And I've learned how much that I'm not driving, I'm not swimming, and by the end of a day of typing all day at work, I'm physically shattered, which is unusual for me. So I think from a personal point of view, I'm really missing being able to do the exercise that is an exercise that works for me. So in terms of work, I mean, my employers are really good in that, they have agile working policies, and I'm officially a home worker. Although I travel out for work, my official place of work is my home. So at the moment, I'm just not traveling anywhere. What I'm doing is, in terms of what I can talk about, is that a lot of the projects that I was working on at work are on hold. but me and another colleague have basically been moved into sort of a COVID response informal team. So we are predominantly, so the organisation I work for have around about 4,500 people who've declared that they have some form of disability.
Right.
And a lot of those people have adjustments, whether that's a chair for their back condition, or whether it's a BSL interpreter, whether it's software on their computer at work, and now they've got a laptop at home. So we have been basically arranging and facilitating the movement of that stuff from the office to home. And obviously, banking is 24/7, so we have call centres that are open at night, people that work at night, so people that work at weekends, on bank holidays. So even though my job doesn't involve that, I get emails at all sorts of times that we expect for me to be able to kind of turn that around quickly. So it has been more challenging at work, doing a very different type of work, a lot more interactive. But we're using it as a positive as well, because we're now connecting with a lot more people. So we've got an internal social media platform. So actually everyone that requests some kit to move home, I'm trying to connect with them and help understand, you know, what their barriers are, but also help them understand what support's available to them at work as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, because we've talked a bit about, you know, are there, again, always the caveat, you know, it's horrible time and very fearful of catching it, and the consequences of that, and loved ones that might catch it and all the rest of it. But there's definitely been a common thread on the Daily Show about silver linings. I mean, from your point, what are your thoughts around disability inclusion now and in the future as a result of COVID-19?
Oh God, that's a tough question, that one.
Well, from the angle of workplace, I was just thinking about all the people you've been helping to work from home. Is there now the chance they would work a bit more from home afterwards?
So I think I can't talk to it because I'm not involved in those.
No.
But my hunch and what I get from corridor chats that are still informal is that, you know, whether it's my organisation or other organisations.
Yeah, I mean generally. Yeah.
Jobs that previously they said, you can't do that from home. You need to have that physical contact with somebody. Well, we've proved that we don't need that. So I can see more people, whether they're disabled or whether you're a parent, whether you're a single parent, whether you are a carer, whether you I don't know, whether you have some other challenges or barriers. I think, you know, Toby Milden talks about what if adjustments were available for everyone. So everyone in life, there is no such thing as normal. So everyone wants some flexibility. Everyone wants to live their life the way they want to live it. And I think there'll be opportunities to do that. I don't think we'll go back to working in the same way as previously. I can't say what I think it'll be, but positive. And I think organisations that don't realise as well that, you know, and if the government don't realise that this is an opportunity to create more jobs for disabled people who can't travel, it'll be very short-sighted. So I hope there's some positivity around that sort of stuff. There's definitely, you know, people who also fear that the disabled community is going to be left behind. And I think, you know, like all things in life, there's two sides to every view or every argument. So there'll be those that are pessimists, those that are optimists, and I try and sit in the optimist world. I'm there with you on that one. And you know, like we're all as a world and as a country, there are consequences of this economically and even health wise. I mean, the virus won't just disappear. They're saying the main thing is about vaccination, but then, you know, how effective will a vaccination be, particularly if the virus mutates, all that kind of stuff. So like there's a lot of things that we don't know at the moment. But yeah, I think, you know, that there's a level of we've all got to muck in and crack on together. But I think there is this real sense that the rest of society almost has experienced what a lot of disabled people have experienced every day before. So maybe there's a bit more understanding and awareness of what it is to be more stuck at home and not able to interact out and about in society for different reasons. Yeah, and I think, you know, different people in life have different family networks, different friendship networks, and I think, you know, COVID-19 has definitely brought people close together, but I think also it's helped people. For me, kind of, it's helped me understand the benefits of friends. I think I've also realised in my circle of friends who look out for each other more, who are just, even though we're all busy still in our lives, those dropping in and checking in on people. I've tried to randomly text more people that I don't text as much as I'd like, to say, how are you? I think it's definitely made people have a different outlook on things. I'm a bit, when I say I live in the optimist world, I wonder when the new normal happens, how quickly people will get back into their kind of daily routine and getting on the train and not saying. I mean, I go out for a walk quite regularly, and everyone says hello, and jokingly, I'm like, oh, do you know what? I wish people would stop saying hello to me every now and again. Like, it's getting hard work, So,
there's a softness to this whole thing with, like you say, people being more saying hi and smiling in the street, and there's been comparisons made of the sort of wartime, that national threat and coming together and all that sort of stuff. So no, it's interesting times.
I live in a small village. There's a WhatsApp group going around, so again, linking back to technology.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've got access to priority shopping, so without taking Mickey, if there's elderly people or people in the village who are isolating, I've said, if you want me to add a couple of things to my shopping list, let me know. I'll get it for you. It's not a big deal. So,
and the thing I really love about that point, Ross, because that's just generally lovely that you do that. Like, as Ross, as a person, that's just amazing that you would think of others. But there's also a bigger point that sometimes disability is so pounded in that we're the ones that are in need and need the help of others. But there's always that space. And we know lots of other disabled people that are caring and friendly to others, obviously. But yeah, it's sort of like there's that we can give value in so many ways that a lot of people maybe wouldn't even think of.
But with a comedy to this story, the full circle of life is that one of the neighbours who I've been helping helped me and you when we were younger, Mrs. Wilkie.
Oh,
so
wow.
She was my neighbour and she couldn't get some shopping. And I was like, it's fine. I'll add it to my shopping list.
Yeah.
No problem. So, she helped us with our physio and stretching, all that, swimming when we were younger. And now, she's, bless her, 80, but still like fit as a fiddle. But, she's classed, I guess, as not someone that should be going into supermarkets and things like that. So,
we all have to help each other, right?
Yeah.
We've got a message here. Hello, the motivator, with 2 hearts. So I'm going to say that one's for you, Ross.
I'm not a motivator, I'm just Ross.
So I think in terms of all the things I was wanting to ask you and touch on, we've probably covered. We had a message on LinkedIn from Andy Kent, who I'd actually like to get on the show. I'll reach out to you soon, Andy. Have you ever met Andy from Andy's Cars? He is based in Bar Hill near Cambridge and did a lot of adapted mobility vehicles. So I've known him for a long while. He's a good mate, but he's written on LinkedIn that RF Logics do some very good link products in terms of the smart apps we were talking about earlier. So anything else you want to finish off before we wrap up?
I don't know. I'm sure there was many things you mentioned talking about around kind of like COVID. I think one of the things that probably to touch on, because there's a few minutes left, is kind of, we're members of various SMA pages on Facebook, and there's a lot about, that's it, we're in now for the rest of 2020. And as much as I'm a bit of a wind up and I like a bit of a laugh, my responses to people have been very genuine. I'm not gonna, if lockdown, when it becomes less, am I going to get on a packed train and a packed tube in London straight away? No, I'm not. If though my friends are in a beer garden over the summer and we're outside, and I'm not going in there and hugging and kissing them all, but I'm going to go and sit and have a quiet pint with them, I'm not going to sit at home and miss out on that. The tough one for me will be if there's any form of football recurrence, any form of spectators. I couldn't do this without mentioning it, but we were on course to make things historic for us. If there's any form of that, I'm going to be faced with a very, very tough decision. I stupidly went to the Atletico Madrid game. So the night where the game that's under the big controversy that shouldn't have happened. So I literally arrived home from holiday and I was like, I'm not missing this game. I went to the Barcelona game last year and miracles do happen. So I went to the game and miracles nearly did happen. I've never been so wet in all my life because it absolutely chucked it down. And you know what? I was saying to one of my carers the other night, I think the bad weather that night actually meant that there wasn't a dry night of wind blowing where people's, mouth and sneezes and all that would have been fine. The rain probably saved me.
Well, we did say actually, didn't we, about touching on football. So you, as you say, you're a big Liverpool fan, and you've travelled. I mean, you travel holidays, and you do like travel in holiday sense, but you've travelled a lot for football. I mean, how's that been from an inclusion accessibility point of view with following Liverpool around Europe and the world?
Okay, so I have been lucky. I went to Kiev a few years ago to the Champions League final. It was really kind of like a daunting experience to kind of book it. Couldn't get a hotel, looked at driving. All the logistics involved in that were not good. So I decided to do the thing where I just basically stayed up for 36 hours. So I literally flew in and flew out. And again, we had contingency plans around stripping the wheelchair down and chucking it in the back of a taxi. I took a transit seat to sit in if I needed to be lifted, slings and all sorts of things. And actually, we went on a chartered plane. So like most flights, I was, aisle chaired on and off because there was no baggage. It was actually brilliant. I was on and off very quickly. The plane was declassified. So they just sat me in a front row seat that was probably a more expensive seat than, I would have normally purchased. So there was space. We got to Kiev and we got off the airport. We rolled onto an accessible bus, in the Ukraine. We rolled off an accessible bus into a fan village. Some of the streets weren't brilliant, but and there was a lack of disabled toilets, but we found some. Got into the stadium. The view, some people moaned about, but the atmosphere was
the atmosphere in it.
And the airport was fine. Everything was okay. It wasn't utopia. In terms of traveling around, obviously, I went to. It's hard for me to say. I went to your beloved new Tottenham Stadium in February, I think it was, when we played you there. Unbelievable stadium. What I really loved about it was, as an away fan, you get to walk in the same entrance as all the other away fans that are non-disabled. So all the singing, all the dancing, all the banter. The disabled area is sort of upstairs for the away fans, but the non-disabled fans can come and mingle. So again, completely involved in the atmosphere, the pitch, the view, unbelievable. So really, really good. Arsenal got a really good stadium. Liverpool, where I go, it's getting better. I think football generally is pretty good. There's lots of change in places, toilets in some of the stadiums now as well. So
we're getting some football comments. So Paul said a lily white and a red, and she was just talking about going to the Tottenham Stadium. It's nice to hear Tottenham did something reasonably good in the last year or two. And obviously there was the infamous Champions League final where you beat us as well, which we'll skip on from. And Ben just saying, come on, you Spurs as well. So a few football followers. But I think you're right there. If you think back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, it was a lot of hooligans and fighting and just very much like, I don't know about middle-aged men, but a lot of men. And now you do get families. There's a lot more around female fans and disabled fans. There's a lot more inclusion in the game as supporters, which is really good to see. And on a infrastructural level, it's got better. And I've been going to watch a lot of games as well. Paul says not a patch on Loftus Road. I've not been to. Have you been to Loftus Road, Ross?
No, not yet.
No, not that we're making a point with that, Paul, but no, we'll have to go there sometime. But I remember going to the older Tottenham ground, White Hart Lane, as it used to be. You're saying about with the away fans, so they would put certain parts of the Tottenham disabled fans in with the away supporters. So that just seemed fine to do that. And then you've got me and my stepbrothers that get all rowdy and wound up, and then we got in some fights because that's what kind of happens when you're put with the opposition fans at a football match. So
Yeah.
good to see that they're really thinking inclusion through now.
Yeah, I think kind of just to kind of, I don't know whether it's the end of this session, but I think kind of my outlook on life around kind of linked into like, how you asked the question, how good is it?
Yeah.
I think I'm a realist, and kind of some people won't like this when maybe they won't agree with this comment, but for me, the world wasn't built for disabled people. And if you go around hoping for utopia, you're going to be disappointed. So you've got to understand that not people don't necessarily understand all of our needs.
Yeah.
And, I don't understand the needs of other various demographic diversity as fully as I should. So if you go into life with, the glass is half full rather than half empty, you can have a good time. Crystal Palace away is a terrible ground, but it's like going to, a small market town battered shed, but the atmosphere makes it. So, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, awesome. I'm glad we got to touch on football. There's definitely something there on a whole chat, whether you come back, we'll talk a bit more, or there's probably some like the wheelchair football players as well. It'd be good to get a bit more of a focus on football and on the show at some point, and probably Olympic. And there's going to be the Paralympics this summer, wasn't there, as well? So
a guy called John Bolden, who I think won. I think he's on Facebook. I think he won some sort of England, European World Football Champions or something.
Yeah, England have won some of the finals.
Yeah, he played. I think he's the captain.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. I remember playing. I had a season playing for Tottenham at wheelchair football, so I scored for Spurs, which was like a dream come true. And then they pulled, so the team was moved into like Evergreen or something, but Tottenham as a club didn't support it anymore. And then the other reasons, I ended up being busier with running a business and doing the travels and stuff. But yeah, it was quite cool that there were like proper football clubs with the wheelchair team involved, but it's quite brutal as well. I mean, wheelchair rugby is another level, but even wheelchair football was pretty heavy tackles going in. I was more of a midfield playmaker that didn't like to get too dirty,
I'm not sure wheelchair football is one for me. I quite enjoy being a spectator of the real game. So
yeah. And another thing we'll get on there another time is gaming, because I've reached out to Special Effects after you suggested, because I've got this new laptop and I want to get back on some gaming, but be able to do it sufficiently with my dexterity difficulties. So yeah, I'm speaking to them and they'll loan out a control for me to try, and then obviously if I get on with it, I can then purchase it myself.
I think they might have changed their policy recently. I don't think you have to. I think they just lend it to you for forever. So,
well, that would be good. I'll let you know what goes on anyway. But all right, mate, I'm going to get me a bit of lunch before my meetings kick off this afternoon. But really good to have a chat.
So cool. Cheers, Martin.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. And thanks everyone for watching. If you've got any other questions for Ross about apps and smart tech or anything else we spoke about today, just search Ross Hovey on Facebook, or I think that's the main platform you use, isn't it? Or LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram. I don't check LinkedIn as much as I should because it's just too many apps.
Yeah. No, fair enough. But yeah, everyone, if or likewise for me as well, if you've got any questions, and have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you Monday for the next episode. So see everyone, and see you, Ross.
Cheers. Bye.